Yeah.
I saw that.
Yeah.
Most of the sports, you know. Hey, Annette, we'll go by this cell phone wall clock instead of the,
1 minute.
I think it's always delayed.
Oh, yeah. It's 1 o'clock.
It is 1 o'clock now.
1:05.
Yeah, so like,
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Delaware Public Service Commission meeting of September 30th, 2020. Commissioner Correa, are you present? Commissioner Conaway, are you present?
I'm present.
Commissioner Drexler?
I am present.
Commissioner Gray?
I'm here.
We have a quorum. Are there any changes or corrections to the meeting minutes of September 9th, 2020? If not, may we have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
I second. Kim Drexler.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
That's the four present have all voted aye. Our next vote we'll do it one at a time for the record. Not that that wasn't on the record, it was, but it'll be easier for us if I do it that way. The consent agenda, does anyone want any of the consent agenda to come off and be placed onto the regular agenda? If not,
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Gray moves that the consent agenda be adopted as submitted.
Commissioner Drexler
Conaway seconds.
Commissioner Conaway seconds. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I want to ask if Commissioner Correa has gotten on since we last talked. Commissioner Conaway?
Yes.
Commissioner Drexler?
Yes.
Commissioner Gray?
Yes.
And I vote in favor as well. The motion carries and the consent agenda is approved. Next is the regular agenda. Number one is in the matter of the application of Delmarva Power and Light Company for approval of modifications to its gas cost rates. It is proposed order number 9655, and I believe we have Mr. Jordan from Delmarva Power and Light.
Yes, good afternoon, Your Honor. May it please the Commission. This is Brian Jordan on behalf of Delmarva Power. Delmarva filed its application to change its gas cost rates on August 25th, 2020. And Delmarva thanks staff for preparing the opening order for this docket and for the opportunity to comment. Delmarva's comments to the order have been incorporated in the version that the Commission had. Order number 9655 will open the docket for this proceeding and permit Delmarva's proposed changes to the gas cost rates to become effective for natural gas usage on or after November 1st, 2020, subject to a refund pending the Commission's final decision. I look forward to working with staff and council on this application, and accordingly, Delmarva respectfully requests that the Commission enter order number 9655. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan. Mr. O'Brien.
Thank you, Chair Winslow and Commissioners. Bill O'Brien, Deputy Attorney General on behalf of Commission staff. Staff agrees with Mr. Jordan's summary of the order. It is the typical opening order for a gas cost case for Delmarva Power. And in addition to approving the rates on a temporary basis, subject to refund, it does designate a hearing examiner for certain limited purposes. It provides the company with the public notice of the proceeding to publish in the newspaper, and it sets an intervention date for interested persons to petition to intervene in the case as a party. And like Delmarva, staff does ask the commission to approve proposed order number 9655. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Brien. Ms. Iori?
Thank you, Chairman Winslow and Commissioners. The public advocate is satisfied with the proposed form of order.
Thank you, Ms. Iori. Commissioners, any questions or a motion?
This is Commissioner Drexler, motion to approve proposed order number 9655 as presented.
May we have
Commissioner Gray, second.
Commissioner Gray seconds. Is there any discussion on the motion? Commissioner Conaway?
Yes.
Commissioner Drexler?
Yes.
Commissioner Gray?
Yes.
Winslow is a yes as well. The motion carries. Next is number 2, in the matter of the application of Chesapeake Utilities Corporation for approval of a change of its gas sales service rates, GSR. And we have proposed order number 9657 to consider. Ms. Orr, please.
Thank you, Chair Winslow and Commissioners. Lindsay Orr on behalf of Chesapeake Utilities. You have in front of you order number 9657, which will open the docket for Chesapeake's application for approval of a change in its gas sales service rates to be effective November 1st, 2020. Chesapeake filed its original application in this docket on September 1st, 2020. On September 14th, Chesapeake filed an amended application due to costs that were inadvertently excluded from the calculation contained in the original application. On September 28th, Chesapeake filed its second amended application to remove renewable natural gas costs from the rate calculations. Chesapeake is currently in the process of finalizing contract terms to secure renewable natural gas commodity, and Chesapeake looks forward to filing a separate application regarding the costs associated with that commodity at that time. As compared to the rates in effect on November 1st, 2019, the rates proposed in the second amended application will result in an average RS2 customer using 700 CCF per year experiencing an annual decrease of approximately 1.67% or $1.46 per month, and a typical RS2 customer using 120 CCF per month during the winter heating season experiencing a decrease of approximately 1.89% or $3 per winter month. Order number 9657 opens the docket, assigns a hearing examiner to rule on motions for intervention, sets deadlines for intervention and written comment, and permits the proposed GSR changes to become effective for usage on and after November 1st, 2020, subject to refund pending the Commission's further review and final decision. Chesapeake thanks staff and DPA for the dialogue around this filing and respectfully requests the Commission approve order number 9657. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Orr. Mr. Walsh?
Good afternoon, Chair Winslow and Commissioners. Tom Walsh on behalf of staff. We have reviewed this order. There have been discussions. Ms. Orr's recitation of the procedural history is accurate, and staff supports Commission's approval of order number 9657.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Ms. Iori?
Thank you, Chairman Winslow and Commissioners. The public advocate supports the proposed form of order. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Iori. Commissioners, any questions or a motion?
Commissioner Gray moves that the Commission adopt order number 9657 as submitted.
Commissioner Conaway seconds the motion.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Commissioner Conaway?
Yes.
Commissioner Drexler?
Yes.
Commissioner Gray?
Yes.
and Winslow is a yes as well. The motion carries. We're going to go into the hearing schedule. And the number one is in the matter of the adoption of rules to establish an evacuation damage prevention program. Excuse me. PSC regulation docket number 8002. Mr. O'Brien.
Sorry, I was on mute there for a second. Thank you, Chair Winslow and Commissioners. Bill O'Brien on behalf of Commission staff. Today is the required public hearing on the Commission's proposed regulations, which will establish the Commission's procedures for its enforcement of the Underground Utility Damage Prevention and Safety Act. You have before you a copy of the proposed regulations, which the Commission proposed for promulgation on June 3rd, 2020, by order number 9595. After the hearing today, we will recommend that the Commission leave the record open for 15 days for any additional written public comment as required by the Administrative Procedures Act, and then we will reconvene on October 21st with a written order for your consideration. If we receive any material objections to the proposed regulations within those 15 days, we can address those on the 21st. So if it pleases the Chairman, staff will call its first and only witness.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you. Staff calls Matthew Hartigan to the stand and asks the court reporter to swear him in.
Mr. Hartigan, do you swear that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name and business address for the record.
My name is Matthew Hartigan. I'm employed by the Delaware Public Service Commission. My business address is 861 Silver Lake Boulevard, Suite 100, Dover, Delaware 19904.
And please state your occupation.
I am the Deputy Director of the Delaware Public Service Commission.
And please describe your professional background.
I earned a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration from Lemoyne College and a Master of Science degree in Management and Public Administration from Wilmington University. I've been employed at the Commission since 2011.
And please briefly describe your duties and responsibilities with the Commission.
I am primarily responsible for staff administrative functions, external legislative initiatives. I was actively involved in drafting Senate Bill 189, upon which the proposed regulation is based.
And was this testimony prepared by you or under your supervision?
Yes.
Please describe the origin of the proposed regulations.
So prior to 2018, the Delaware law that governs excavation procedures did not provide the Commission with enforcement authority of those procedures. In order to improve enforcement authority in Delaware, PHMSA recommended that the Commission seek to amend the law to provide it with enforcement authority. As you're aware, PHMSA, which is short for the U.S. Department of Transportation's Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, is the federal agency that oversees the Commission's pipeline safety program. In August 2018, the Governor of Delaware signed into law Senate Bill 189 with Senate Amendment 2, providing the Commission with the authority to enforce the Underground Utility Damage Prevention and Safety Act. The proposed regulations before you today provide the enforcement procedures the Commission will follow.
Other than provide enforcement authority to the Commission, what does Senate Bill 189 require?
The new law requires operators of underground utility lines to notify the Commission of any facilities damage caused by excavation resulting in damages exceeding $3,000. It directs the Commission to review the notifications of excavation damage to determine any violations, and it authorizes the Commission to impose penalties appropriate to the circumstances and gravity of the violation.
And has staff set up a notification process for facilities damaged caused by excavation?
Yes. In January 2019, staff established a notification process for excavation damage and potential violations of the Damage Prevention Act. The notification consists of fillable forms on the Commission website, which include the type of utility line struck, the owner of the utility line, and whether any injuries occurred, among other things.
Okay, Mr. Hardigan, I'm going to back up for just a second, just to make sure we get on the record. One exception to one of the requirements you listed that are now part of the law as a result of Senate Bill 189. You did mention that operators of underground utility lines have to notify the Commission of any facilities damage caused by excavation resulting in damages exceeding $3,000. Let me ask you, is there an exception to that rule such that operators of underground pipeline facilities must report all excavation damage to facilities, irrespective of whether it was over $3,000?
Yes, that's true. Sorry, I missed that earlier.
Oh, no, that's fine. Can you please summarize the proposed regulations?
The proposed regulations mainly establish procedures for the Commission's enforcement of the Underground Utility Damage Prevention and Safety Act. They provide that upon receiving notice of excavation damage, staff will determine whether a probable violation has occurred, and if so, may issue a citation, a warning letter, or a notice of probable violation, depending on the nature of the violation. The regulations provide the respondent with its response options, including requesting an informal conference with staff and creating an action plan to correct the alleged violation. When a notice of probable violation, or NOPV, is issued, the parties may agree to a consent order which includes a corrective action and any monetary penalties, or they may proceed to an evidentiary hearing. The regulations also describe the Commission's authority to assess penalties, which is taken directly from the Damage Prevention Act. In addition, the regulations require that operators, when notifying the Commission of excavation damage, complete the Commission's Underground Facility Damage Report, which, as I mentioned earlier, can be accessed via the Commission's website. Operators may also provide photographic evidence to the Commission, which in practice could be a major component of many of the enforcement actions brought by the Commission. The regulations also require that excavators call 911 when they pause or discover a release from an underground pipeline facility, which was a specific recommendation from PHMSA.
And did staff include stakeholders in the development of the proposed regulation?
Yes. Before drafting the regulations, staff met with representatives from Utilities Service Protection of Delmarva, better known as Miss Utility of Delmarva. Miss Utility is the approved notification center that coordinates the marking of underground utility lines prior to excavation and was active in getting the excavation damage law amended in 2018. After creating and circulating a draft of the regulations, staff conducted a meeting via video conference on April 2nd, 2020, with numerous stakeholders, including utility operators, excavation contractors, DMEC, the City of Dover, and the Division of the Public Advocate. Staff also accepted written comments on the draft regulations until April 27th, 2020. And based on those comments from various stakeholders, including those from Miss Utility, the Public Advocate, and Delmarva Power, staff made several changes to the draft and thereafter received no further objections to the proposal.
And was there public notice of this proceeding published?
Yes. Staff published notice in 2 different newspapers and provided notice of this rulemaking to underground facility operators, Miss Utility, the Delaware Contractors Association, and the Division of the Public Advocate. We developed a service list for the docket that included 91 contacts. The proposed regulations were published in the July 1st, 2020 Delaware Register of Regulations, and notice of this hearing was sent to the service list for this docket and was published in the September 1st, 2020 Register of Regulations. And of course, notice of this hearing was published on the state calendar and with the agenda for today's meeting, as well as the agenda for the last meeting.
And in your opinion, are the proposed regulations in the public interest?
Yes. According to PHMSA, excavation damage is a leading cause of underground pipeline safety failures. The proposed regulations, which facilitate the Commission's enforcement of Delaware's excavation damage law, are therefore in the public interest. In addition, the proposed regulations comply with Senate Bill 189 and with PHMSA's recommendations.
And what is your recommendation regarding the proposed regulations?
Staff recommends that the Commission adopt the proposed regulations for the reasons I have provided in this testimony. In addition, in order to comply with the Administrative Procedures Act, the Commission should leave the record open for any additional written public comment for 15 days following this hearing. The notice for today's hearing included an October 15th, 2020 deadline for written comment.
Does this conclude your testimony in this proceeding?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Hartigan, and thank you, Chairman and Commissioners. That is staff's only witness. So I will turn it back over to the Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. O'Brien and Mr. Hartigan. Is there anyone else interested in this docket that wishes to speak at this time?
Chairman Winslow, this is Regina Iori on behalf of the Delaware Division of the Public Advocate. We would just like to express our appreciation to staff and particularly to Mr. Hartigan for drafting the regulations and conducting the workshop on the proposed regulations. We did have the chance to comment on them before they were proposed to the Commission, and I think it was a very collaborative process, and it was, I think, much, it was made much more pleasant experience. So thank you to staff and particularly to Mr. Hartigan.
Thank you, Ms. Iori. Commissioners, do you have any questions?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Karia. Just want to let you know that I have joined the meeting in the beginning of the hearing, and I just want to let you know that I'm here.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the regulations, I've read through them. I think these are very necessary. I appreciate the efforts and contribution of staff as well as others who have a stake in getting them deployed. And as I read this, it says the damage prevention program, and I have some not inconsequential issues in section 7.8.3. And I don't know whether everyone has a copy in front of them, but I'll read what I have here. It says, in determining the amount of a fine, the Commission shall consider the nature, circumstances, and gravity of the violation. And it goes further. With respect to the person found to have committed the violation, the degree of culpability, any history of prior violations, the effect on ability to continue to do business, any good faith in attempting to achieve compliance, ability to pay the fine, and such other matters as justice may require. My perspective on the language here is that degree, history, ability to continue to do business, good faith, and such other matters as justice may require are all nearly impossible parameters to measure or quantify. I think adoption of this clause will compromise, convolute, perhaps even complicate any straightforward determination of whether fines can or ever will be a deterrent to poor excavation practices and potential violations. So this clause provides for me no useful incentive to maintain excavation safety. So I would recommend that it be deleted from the rules.
Thank you, Commissioner Gray. My recollection from my past experience is that language is probably something that's been borrowed from the federal regulation, but why don't we have Mr. Hartigan address Commissioner Gray's concern?
Thank you, Chairman Winslow. I'm not sure if that was pulled from the federal regulation or not, but I just wanted to emphasize again that there is a specific process to be followed here whenever the staff would recommend a penalty, and which may include a hearing before the commission. So, it's not staff making this determination in a vacuum.
Chair Winslow, this is Bill O'Brien. If I may have a few words.
Yes, sir, please.
Thank you, and very, very good question, and we appreciate your comments, Commissioner Gray. And I do wish to just point out that those words are verbatim from the statute. So 26 Delaware Code, Section 810, penalties, provides that language for the Commission's enforcement of the Damage Prevention Act. But we certainly recognize that there is some discretion woven into those words, and it's true that there's no specific calculation of a penalty that can be tied to that. But I will say that our program manager and his team have been assessing penalties under the Pipeline Safety Act, which is different from the Excavation Damage Prevention Act. And they have experience assessing penalties, and the operators have experience working with the program manager regarding those penalties. And we do expect to move forward in the same light of cooperation regarding these penalties. But again, I would just emphasize that language is taken exactly from the Damage Prevention Act. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Brien. If I understood Mr. Hartigan's description of how a perceived violation was determined, it seemed for me there's several foregoing steps prior to a penalty that would perhaps employ these elements of history and prior violations before one gets to the point of determining a penalty is indicated. And so therefore, I would have expected in these regulations that these parameters would be used to arrive at whether or not a penalty was justified. And so when you're getting to a penalty phase, having gone through the prior steps, I'm a little bit concerned that this language and clause simply waters down the effective deterrent of a penalty altogether, because you're rolling back to determine some of the things I would have expected earlier in the process.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes, thank you, Chairman and Commissioner Gray. Right, I want to stress that when the Commission makes the consideration of the fine, it will have before it a recommendation from staff, which has been based on all that criteria that's been discussed. So the Commission won't be operating in a vacuum. And in fact, in many cases, as with the Pipeline Safety Act, there will be a consent order before the Commission for consideration where the operator and staff has already agreed to a proposed penalty based on this criteria that will be submitted to the Commission for consideration. So the Commission certainly won't be sitting in a vacuum trying to come up with a fine. They will have a recommendation before it, and I would say in most cases, that recommendation will already have been agreed to by the operator. So hopefully, when you take it in its totality, you can see that the Commission will be most likely able to consider those things that you think are important in conjunction with staff already going through them with the operator.
Okay, so I yield on the point that these parameters will be taken into consideration in order to formulate a recommended penalty to the Commission, but not that we debate as a Commission when it gets to the penalty phase, all of these parameters again at the penalty decision.
Understood.
Mr. Chair, I therefore yield my concerns and yield back to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Commissioner Gray. Any other commissioner have any questions about the proposed excavation damage prevention program? May we have a motion with regard to that program?
Commissioner Drexler, move that we approve the proposed rules as published on, in the July 1, 2020 Delaware Register of Regulations.
And if I may interject for 1 second, Chairman, Bill O'Brien again, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Well, it's appropriate for you to vote today, but I just wanted to make sure it was contingent on this open public comment period for another 15 days, and then we'll come back to you on the 21st with a written order, and you can vote again on that day. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. O'Brien. I didn't hear a second to that motion, did I?
This is Commissioner Karia. I'll second the motion.
Is there any discussion on the motion? So, Commissioner Korea, how do you vote on that motion?
Yes.
Commissioner Conaway?
I'm sorry, yes.
Commissioner Drexler?
Yes.
Commissioner Gray?
Yes.
And Winslow is a yes as well. Thank you, Mr. O'Brien, Mr. Hartigan, and we will see everyone on this issue again after the 15-day public notice period, and we'll have an opportunity to discuss it further if Commissioner Gray would like to. And we will go on to the next issue, which is public comments. Is there anyone present in the room or on the internet or a part of this meeting that wishes to make any public comment to the Public Service Commission? There was a person who was here present before the meeting started who made a suggestion to the commission. That is that they were suggesting cardboard cutouts for all of the commissioners, so that when you're not here and you're speaking on the phone, they can pop up your picture on the cardboard and show you on the live stream. If you have any objections to that, you can let me know that privately. I guess Dr. Barua will be working on that. Dr. Barua?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. We have relabeled this section as administrative matters. At this time, I call upon Lisa Driggins to do her presentation. Lisa, you on?
Yeah, I'm here.
Go ahead.
So every year, Verizon files Form 481 for the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC. The FCC requires the State Regulatory Commission to verify that certain carriers are eligible to receive high-cost program support in their respective states. Staff has reviewed Verizon's filing at the FCC and requests that the Commission approve and allow Executive Director Barua to make the appropriate electronic filing before the FCC that certifies Verizon Delaware LLC as a telecommunication carrier eligible for high-cost support in Delaware.
Thank you very much, Ms. Driggins. Dr. Barua, anything else?
Nothing else. We need your approval.
Commissioners, do you have any questions of Ms. Driggins? May we have a motion?
I move that the Commission give authority to Executive Director to make the appropriate filings to the FCC regarding Verizon.
Commissioner Conaway seconds the motion.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, Commissioner Korea.
Yes.
Commissioner Conaway.
Yes.
Commissioner Drexler.
Yes.
Commissioner Gray.
Yes.
And Winslow is a yes as well. The motion carries. Dr. Barua.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, and thank you, Lisa. Before I announce the next meeting, I just want to give a thanks to Lindsay Orr of Chesapeake, Matt Everingham of Chesapeake, Mary Kozal of Chesapeake, Tom Walsh of staff, Shona Marshall of staff, and Gina Irie and Drew Slater of DPA for working together on a very expedited manner to get the Chesapeake's GSR filing before you today. So my thanks to them. With that, the only announcement I have is that the next commission meeting is scheduled for October 21st, 2020 at 1 p.m. We will know on October 2nd if the governor extends his emergency order. If he does not, then that October 21st meeting will be in person here at the hearing room. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. That is the end of the meeting. The meeting is adjourned.